Is AI going to give you an advantage? It is going to give you a competitive advantage. I think it will if it's done right, but it's almost a tool that you have to use now. So you really don't wait and do what a lot of people did 20 years ago, where they were like, oh, we'll let the internet catch up to us. And it took actually until COVID for all companies to finally move into the digital world. And that is true. That's only 5 years ago. And people had like a 20-year runway. It's not going to be that way now. It's going to be a 20-month, 12-month runway, 10-month runway, where, if you don't engage in, if you don't do it, then your competitors are going to do it. So at the bare minimum, you need to do it, stay even with your competitors.
If you're enjoying the show, hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. You'll get the latest on marketing, AI, and how to grow your business. It only takes 2 seconds and really helps the show grow. So please hit subscribe and then continue listening. Len, great to have you on the show today. You obviously run Comexis, which is like an AI consulting, marketing, digital transformation. We'll get into that in a bit, which you can explain sort of what you do. But I'm curious what your favorite thing is about AI right now. How are you using it either in business or personal life to sort of have some fun?
I think, personal life, I could go on and on, but for business, I think the most interesting thing we're doing right now is how fast we can build products,
Mm-hmm.
workflows, certain types of landing pages, just all kinds of apps and products, and how quick it is. And as long as you really don't need to know a lot of coding. If you just know just a little bit of coding, it really goes a far way. But I think that's the most exciting thing right now in AI is the products we're rolling off our assembly line, which I'm sure a lot of people are as well, is really, really crazy. It's interesting.
It's cool. I think just seeing the capacity of what it can do and create, and it just seems to keep evolving of like, oh, you can do this. Oh, you can use it for this. And yeah, it just seems to keep shifting, especially as new tools and stuff come out.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's definitely something where we kind of got involved in this probably about 3 years ago. Our agency really was like, okay, we're seeing this shift. And the thing we noticed right away was, okay, look, this is really, really moving away from people looking on Google. Like this is like solve my problem. And, this is really going to upend marketing. But how fast everybody kept talking about how fast it was going to move, and they weren't lying. I came from a background decades ago where I was on the e-commerce side and, in the .com era for Wall Street. I'm going back years, dating myself, but that moves really quick. This is absolutely mind blowing how quick it is. And if it's moved as quick as it has in the last 36 months to the next 36 months, I can't even imagine what this world's going to look like. So yeah, it can be overwhelming at times. So
Yeah, it's like we're on this kind of edge of an exponential curve where it's just like up and up and up and up. And it just sort of keeps going, which is really cool in some ways. And like kind of like, yeah, where are we going to end up? What's going to be those practical applications? And so you mentioned sort of Wall Street e-commerce, and now obviously you're doing AI. Why the shift, or what kind of is your story? How you pivoted and all of that?
yeah, so I was on the investment banking side with a company called Credit Suisse. I started with Morgan Stanley. There was some mergers and so forth, and the end of the road happened with me on Wall Street, which happens. Thought about getting back on Wall Street, but then I had an opportunity to potentially buy a business, and then I kind of started looking into e-commerce. But the one thing that I took away from that is it was the beginning of like Google and search engines and pay-per-click and SEO. And this is going way back to 2004. So you're beginning to see the beginning of it, and you saw that that's where business is really headed. So I had the opportunity to buy a business. I didn't. I actually ended up starting an e-commerce business with somebody else. It ended up working well for me. And right there is where I learned how to do SEO, pay-per-click, social media started coming in at the very end of the business. Fast forward, next thing you know, the economy got a little rough in 08, 09. As people know, the housing boom kind of, the bubble burst. And what I did from there is I basically started helping people out with their digital marketing. And I tell the story all the time. Next thing you know, I walked in and there's 25 people looking at me who are employees at an agency. And that's how fast it happened. And I've been doing digital marketing now for the better part of, I guess, well over 20 years now.
It's cool. I think it's interesting. It seems a bit of a theme that a lot of people talk about on the podcast is kind of just this falling into marketing. And it sounds like it kind of was similar for you, where it was like you pivoted into ecom and then obviously like had to just learn as part of that business, and then eventually shifted back into like a full service marketing agency. And so, like, was there a moment where you were like, AI is going to change everything? Like, do you remember when it kind of hit you like this thing is next level, or was it just kind of a gradual thing?
So years ago, you would always hear the murmur in the digital marketing world that this is all going to be automated, and then certain products would come out. certain products HubSpot rolled out and certain products that other people rolled out, and you were starting to see automation a little bit. But the one thing that we tested out probably back in 16 or 17 was IBM Watson. And we actually spent the licensing fee and we tried it out, and it was horrible. It was probably the worst thing I've ever used for the money we invested. But the takeaway was, if this can do what we think it can do, and if they can get that solved, it basically was like our thought process and my thought process walking away was, I'm going to enter a strategy and it's going to basically talk to me back and forth about a strategy. And that's what I was beginning to recognize with it. So it was right then and there. Anytime I could get my hands on anything with AI or they're talking about automation, that's where I would really listen to it. Because the thing that's done for me is that I actually watch an existential threat happen in my e-commerce business. We were in event tickets, and when companies like StubHub were rolling out, and then Ticketmaster was selling their own tickets, we used to sell high-end sports and high-end Broadway tickets. But we knew that was going to be an existential threat because more people were going to start selling on those platforms, and smaller companies like us would not be able to compete with them. And that is how it's all played out. Like, they kind of wiped out a lot of the smaller tier people. I looked at IBM Watson, I looked at some of the automation, and I was like, this is an existential threat to digital marketing. And the threat that I noticed back then that scared me was like, people are not going to search for products the way they are now. And that's, or the way they will in the future. So that was where I kind of took my experience, was like, okay, I saw the dot-com era wiped out a lot of different types of businesses. Then I saw, like, larger companies coming in and wiping out like smaller businesses when I was in e-commerce. I came to this and I looked at it and I was like, okay, wait a minute. This is actually just going to fundamentally change the existence of how business is done, even more so dramatically more so than digital marketing, or I'm sorry, the internet ever did. So at that point, in a long-winded answer, at that point, we really started paying attention, and anything that came across our desk with AI, our team was learning more and more. And I would say probably about 3 years ago that we really, really jumped in and embraced it. And, and now it's just a fundamental tool we use. And I think it's a fundamental tool everybody should use.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's interesting, like the fact that you've seen kind of these big shifts happen over kind of the course of your business career, where you had the .com, you had obviously housing crisis, all of these kind of big events, and then, COVID, and then obviously AI, and kind of seeing, yeah, like there's not really a lot of security in business in a lot of ways. You have to keep pivoting and adapting. And that's just something that is the nature of business and the world we live in. And so what do you see as being, this might be a hard question to answer, but what do you see as being AI's impact on, say, jobs, marketing, sales strategy? You've probably seen obviously some impact already, but where do you think it's impacting currently? And maybe where do you think it'll impact in the future?
I think it's going to have a massive impact on jobs. I fear that we are going to go, I think we're going to go through like a really, really bad period where AI is going to gobble up a lot of jobs, entry level, middle market. And I'll kind of touch on that in a second, but I think it's going to get bad, and I do think that it's going to get ugly and people are going to be unemployed, but yet the economy is going to look good. Companies are going to look like they're doing well, and some people are going to do well. And then there's going to be like this swash of people that really maybe don't have the AI skill or don't understand how to use it, or maybe, they're not adapting well. Maybe it's older people, maybe it's college kids, whatever it may be. But I do think over the hump, I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a boom in entrepreneurship. I do believe that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to own 1 to 5 person shops and are going to make a lot of money. So people forget in this country that, in America, small businesses employ 61% of people. And that's like, a small business goes away, America goes away. So I know that we always like to look at the major conglomerates, but it's the guys like us, small business, that keeps people employed. So I think that's going to rise. I think that's going to be really good. I do think that when you get over that hump, you're going to be looking at 2.5, 3-day work weeks. I do think that work, while very important, you are going to be looking at other things. So I do think it's going to be a better world once we get over that hump. But in that hump, as we're trying to get over it, and I don't know how long that's going to last, I think it's going to get ugly. I really do. I think it's going to be ugly, just for the simple fact that businesses can save money. There's a lot of things that can be automated. And I think it's going to be a problem. What's it coming for first? Marketing, I think, is the absolute first industry it's absolutely come for. From copywriters to designers, to coders, which right now coding is, that's I would be very fearful if I was a coder or a copywriter. It's coming for those ones first. But the last thing I'll say about it is that even if it does come for all of these jobs, if you are a coder or if you are a copywriter or if you are, a creative director, I still think the humans have to pilot this thing. I still think humans have rationale. No matter how smart these things get, they're not going to be able to rationalize a situation. And I think that's where humans are. The problem is that what typically would take a marketing department, a team of 25 to get something done, I think it's going to take a team of 1 to 2, and they're going to pilot these things. So hopefully I answer your question, a long-winded answer. I think it's going to get ugly, but I think once we get over it, and my career probably be done at that point because I'm at the end of the road, which I'm, meaning like I'll be like, sitting in Florida retired.
On a
But yeah, exactly. But I think for the next generation, I think the ones that are behind me, like my kids and so forth, I think it could be a little bit of a rough road for a while there.
No, I think that's a good point, and I think it's hard to know just how wide-ranging the impact is going to be, and so I really think that anybody who's not using AI is going to be doing themselves a disservice, and even if it's just having a play around or educating, even in one or two small ways, I think that can really, really help. And I think, yeah, I think any kind of data job or anything that can be outsourced is going to just be under threat from AI. But I do like what you said about there still needs to be that human oversight in a lot of these things. Like you still have to have someone direct the AI. And even if like a potential client comes and says, "Oh, but I could do it all with AI," and it's like you can, but you still have to spend time creating that content and refining it through AI, and you have to know what good content is and all of that. So I think, yeah, I think it'll, like you said, like a team of 25 can then now do what the same with just 1 or 2 people. I think that's really, really important. And so I know your business is helping other businesses with AI-driven solutions, with chatbots, custom GPTs. What are some kind of examples or stories of this in sort of real life that you've seen?
So you mean it's things like that we've done for customers? You mean
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
like
Sorry, yeah,
impacted?
that you've done
That's
for
fine.
customers. Yeah.
So a couple of things we've done. The first thing we do is we build what's called an AI stack, and it's kind of led by what we call the marketing brain GPT. It's all built on OpenAI, ChatGPT, and we build a marketing stack for people. And it's nothing short of your CMO. There's a marketing brain that basically runs all of the data or that runs the campaign, and we have like a bunch of mini GPTs underneath it. We have a like a copywriter, we have a designer, we have a paid GPT. So they all kind of talk to each other manually. We still have to have them talk to each other because the agent aspect is still a little a ways from a lot of people. So we've created that for people. And what that does is you can roll in and bring in an actual marketing team, which is great. So it's all these pieces that a company may have never had, or 1 or 2 marketing managers couldn't handle, or they would spend a lot of money on an agency. We come in and we build these marketing stacks for you. We either train your team and you run it. We just, do like some maintenance for you. We both work together on it like a classic agency, or we can actually run the entire thing, which is truly like an agency, and we just implement everything it does. And we really do follow what it tells us to do, because the way these things are harvesting data and harvesting information and your analytics and your goal is vastly smarter than what a human can do. What we do is we screen every single thing before it goes out. So we build those marketing stacks. So we do believe that is the future of where marketing is going to be. It's going to be AI stacks that are powered by humans, and then behind the scenes, you have to constantly keep training them. Other things we're doing are like internal chatbots. A lot of times what people don't realize is they have so much data internally, and it's all fragmented on trying to get an answer and trying to figure out a solution for a customer. So what we've done with quite a few companies, our clients, is we actually harvest all that data. We build data rooms or data lakes, whatever term you like to use. And we have our chatbots plug into those rooms. And now either you can speak to it, or with a quick clacking of a few keys, you now know an answer right away without going to Jenny, 2 departments down. I'll have an answer for you next week. So faster proposals, answers that might have taken on very complicated questions, maybe a day or 2, now can happen in a second or 2. And the other thing internal chatbots do is if there are issues with some of your products and customers don't know what to do with it, you can now quickly help them fix it. On the flip side, we also are doing chatbots on websites, which we believe is the future of what websites are going to be. We believe you're going to go to websites and you're going to want to interact directly with a chatbot. It's going to pull images in, it's going to pull videos in, and it's going to talk to you like a human being. It's going to kind of like be Siri on steroids. So the days of people going to your website and clicking your navigation and looking at it all, that while still important, that's going to kind of fade. Your website is now going to be more of a repository for your information. So when customers have something, they're just going to go to the chatbot, your chatbot, or Perplexity or ChatGPT, and it's going to touch into your website, pull in that type of information. Lastly, is we do a bunch of workflows too. So in other words, if customers are they're just trying to figure out certain processes that they're doing internally, and they really don't know. It's like really slow. There's a bottleneck. There's too many people involved. We can come in, look at it all, and then we can actually build AI products from the ground up with what's called vibe coding now. That's a term. It's going to get very big soon. And we build custom software solutions for customers, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost, and we can roll out solutions really, really quick, which all leads to basically the main thing here is we're headed towards a world of search and retrieve to solve my problem. And the main core, what we try to come in with customers is take away trying to get leads, take away all the business right now. Is if you can't solve your client's problems right now immediately because of how they're used to working with Perplexity or GPT or something like that, they're just going to go to the next website or next business that can. So we're making sure that our customers have all those products ready for how customers are now trying to interact with you. So it's kind of like a weird niche. Long-winded, but hopefully I got your answer there for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing all of that. Yeah, it's something really interesting. Someone else sort of mentioned on the podcast too of like, yeah, marketing agencies are largely going to become defunct, and it will be more like helping, like you said, helping them use these AI tools and building them like a marketing bot or a marketing GPT to give them the answers, to give them the content and all of that. Are you guys building these sort of from the ground up, or like, and then does it scrape kind of all of the client's data? Do you upload it manually? Like, what's that kind of technical process look like?
That's actually a good question. So we always build something directly on top of OpenAI, or we build it directly using a Google API feed or Claude or whatever it may be. So we basically build things on top of LLMs. The gentleman that runs Salesforce made the best line. If you're trying to build your own LLM, like a Perplexity or Claude, that's foolish. Just build on top of that. So we're building our products on top of that. So we go in, they have the brains, they have the data, we just pay for the API key, and then we go from there. The reason, and then how to pull the information. Yeah, typically what we do is we basically just, we either create a Dropbox, we'll work with a company like Snowflake, which is a data lake, which is really can harness a ton of information, or we'll just do a simple Google Drive and we'll upload all of your information, and then we simply plug these things in. Some of the stuff we build is from the ground up using vibe coding, meaning it is our specific product. Some of the stuff is an off-the-shelf product that we just grab the chassis per se, and then we just start kind of tweaking the stuff we want it to look like. So a lot of the chatbots you can pull off the shelf, which I would recommend for anybody, but the true magic in the chatbot is not even just hooking it up to the data. The true magic is making sure you're training it the right way and then pulling the information out of the chatbot. Like maybe there's questions that hasn't answered or questions it's not answering correctly, and then creating that content or creating those assets to feed back in to say, okay, now you can answer it more properly. Yeah, that's kind of how we're operating with most of the products.
Mm-hmm. No, it sounds really interesting, and I'm just curious, like if someone's listening and thinking that sounds interesting, like and wanted to sort of find out more, like do you kind of recommend like a one size fits all solution? Do you put a chatbot on every website, every client's thing? Is there kind of a structure or system you follow based on their industry or the size of the company? Like, is it kind of very custom? Like, what does that sort of look like? What would you recommend to those businesses? Yeah.
Yeah, it's very custom. So people will come to us for one of three ways. They'll come to us because they just want a full marketing solution. And sometimes they'll just like, hey, we just want marketing done, and we just want to make sure that we're not going to lose ground with people looking for things in ChatGPT and all that. And then we come in and build them a marketing stack, and then we'll run it for them, or we'll work with our team. There's some people who we have companies that just want the chatbot on the website because they know how important something like that is. So we'll put a chatbot on the website, or they want something internally where their team can tap into all their data now. And then lastly, something that's actually been rising is our AI consulting, where people come to us and they're like, look, we don't know what we need, but we know we have to move into AI. We know that our systems have to run on AI. And that's where we start doing like an AI blueprint form. We do an assessment and say, okay, well, we can build a workflow here. Let's move your marketing there, and let's get a chatbot here. And then we'll kind of look at other things. The reason we go with marketing is because, that's what we do. Obviously, that's where we've been. Number two, it is the number one thing that's being impacted by AI. Number three is something that every business owner understands right away. It's really, really easy to understand that. So when they see what AI is doing for them, it's easier for them to look at the other types of things. And we're shifting away from look at AI as a major competitive advantage for me over to this is a fundamental process or a system that I have to install now. It was much the same way it was 20 years ago, where those companies who really didn't use the internet, and now everybody has to be on the internet. We're moving that stage where I have to have everything running on AI. So tell me what to do because I have no idea what to do. And then tell me the benefits after I see that. So yeah, it's kind of where it's at.
No, I think it's really interesting, and it is something that I think a lot of businesses are going to have to sit and think about at some point is, okay, this is here, like it's not going away. I know there's still people who think it's hype and they're putting their head in the sand, but I think it is very much like the internet. It's here to stay. And the sooner people realize that, the sooner they can do something and lean into it. And so, like, what would you recommend in terms of businesses kind of future-proofing themselves in the age of AI, or not just even future-proofing, but really thriving or being successful? Are there specific things that you'd recommend that they do to adapt, either as like a visionary or within their teams? What do you sort of recommend?
So I think the number one thing you should do is basically try to develop an AI assessment plan if you can, like, and then try to identify an individual who can be the AI champ. Go buy a Teams account at ChatGPT and have your entire organization operating on it. Make sure that you go in and say, okay, well, these are the things you want to feed in AI, and don't be feeding in certain company documents. Make sure that you have all your privacy in place and so forth, but really have a champion or two. Like, you should create your own AI desk per se, whatever company it may be, and be like, even if it's just you're like three people working at a company, where you just three of you, or it's a small business and two or three people, identify the one person that's going to do AI. Any types of article that comes across your desk, or any types of blog or podcast, really, really start leaning in and embracing it. You have to remember, is AI going to give you an advantage? It is going to give you a competitive advantage. I think it will if it's done right, but it's almost a tool that you have to use now. So you really don't wait and do what a lot of people did 20 years ago, where they were like, oh, we'll let the internet catch up to us. And it took actually until COVID for all companies to finally move into the digital world. And that is true. That's only 5 years ago. And people had like a 20-year runway. It's not going to be that way now. It's going to be a 20-month, 12-month runway, 10-month runway, where, if you don't engage in, if you don't do it, then your competitors are going to do it. So at the bare minimum, you need to do it, stay even with your competitors. So you really, really want to start embracing it. So AI assessment plan, and then start looking, hire companies like Comexis or other companies to bring in and say, all right, well, where can we implement AI in our business, which is going to kind of help us out. But the biggest takeaway is this: soon AI is going to be, so most of us are going to walk around with our phone right now. We're going to walk around with a few different things. But you're going to have, or, a few different things on your phone, but AI is now going to act as your agent. AI is going to be Siri on steroids. AI is going to look for restaurants for you if you have to get your car fixed, if you have to have something done to your house. And it's going to negotiate with other businesses' agents. And it's going to come up and it's going to say, all right, Elliot's going to pop up and say, this is the painter you're going to hire to paint your house because they do it at the right price. It's the right reviews. We believe this. We know you better than anybody. And we know that this person, she's going to do a good job of painting your house. And the whole negotiation is going to happen that way. And that's how business is going to be transacted in a lot of ways, where humans don't really have to be involved. I mean, obviously you have to do a final interview with that person, but if your company is not preparing for that type of interaction, that's where you're going to run into a problem. So that's the future of marketing. And kind of going way back to what you said, where somebody said on the podcast, agencies are going to get leveled, or forget the term. You're right. That's exactly what's going to happen. And if you're not prepping for agent to agent marketing as a business leader or as a marketing agency, that's where you're going to fail. That's the problem right there. So,
No, I think it's something worth every business considering. And even, I had someone else on the podcast mention that they're looking at hiring like a dedicated AI person to just do all the research, do all the testing, get to know how the industry works and what tools that they can use for themselves and for their clients. And I think similar to what you said about, like having someone in your team kind of pioneering that, I think is a really smart way to go about it. Someone who can just kind of take ownership of that role, and just kind of keep a lookout and look at, okay, what problems do we need to solve? What bottlenecks do we have? What things can we automate? Where are we spending our most time? And kind of like you mentioned, doing an AI assessment of the business, of all the different channels, marketing and everything. So I think that's really important.
yeah, it really is. It's critical. And, a lot of times, be careful who you hire too with AI, because there's a lot of consultants out there. Yeah. And I'm not knocking anybody, because technically we do consulting, but, you know, with the tools you have and how ChatGPT can teach you and train you, it's almost like identify somebody who really embraces technology, really, really embraces the way things are, and they can be your AI person, because you can learn really, really fast by it. So they don't really have to have a background internally if you're going to hire internally. Just fire some or hire somebody who has long been the one who's been a little ahead technology, or they kind of known technology better than everybody else. That's the one you want to really hire. And then some of these consultants, The fear I have of some of the consultants when I run into consultants, and I've had other businesses say, hey, can you recommend a consultant for me or two? Because there are some things that are out of our wheelhouse. There are certain types of business processes we don't get involved in. My biggest concern with some of the consultants is that they're teaching you how to do your job faster or your job quicker, when the reality is it's a complete fundamental shift. You have to show people how this is upending business and the processes and how they're doing. It's not about getting it done faster. That'll work for the next year or two max, but you have to understand the way we're doing business, the way processes are going to get done, the way AI is going to potentially, or not potentially, it will upend in certain humans you want to go through. So there's an entire way in which your business fundamentally runs. That fundamental is going to completely upend and change. So it's almost like all they're doing is putting a paint job on a bad car and saying, hey, you're gonna look good for a couple of years, where we're coming in and saying, no, you got to come in under the hood and you got to start rewiring, because the way this car is going to fundamentally run is going to be very, very different. And I am not coming across a lot of consultants who understand that. They're just thinking, how do we make things faster right now, which is good for the short term. But I believe that you have a consultant who's right when they walk in, and she sits down and she looks at you and she's like, we have to build this from the ground up. Your fundamentals are going to change. That's the person you want to hire her, before the person that's coming in saying, hey, we're going to get this all done a lot quicker for you. That's good now, but that's not sustainable in business. And the ones that invest in building from the ground up and understand that, they're the ones that are going to prosper on AI going.
Right. And it's also like, I imagine in terms of speeding up and automating, there's only there's a limit to how much you can speed up, to how much you can automate. And like you mentioned, like a paint job on a bad car, it's like really thinking about, because either option you choose, you're going to have to learn and use new tools. So there's going to be change in the organization to manage. And I had a client who's just started a new software, and it's overwhelming for them, to just learn one new software. So then, if you're going out and using one of these consultants and speeding things up, and then you learn all of that, and then it's like, oh, now we actually still have to go back and revamp everything from the ground up. You may as well have just done it right the first time.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's it. I mean, it even starts with, the minute you understand where where AI is going to change all of your processes, and you have to look at yourself and you got to start thinking about the human element. Well, what's going to happen to Jenny? What's going to happen to Mike? What's going to happen to Joe? Like, you got to start thinking about that. You have to start thinking about what's going to happen to your employees, and like, okay, can we move into AI? How does this help their job, or do we even need Joe anymore? Kind of thing. So, I think that you have to have this. There's got to be an empathy here as well as we're implementing these things. So yeah, so that's another thing that I think you have to really pay attention to. But you are right. There's how fast you can scale up and how fast you can make things go quicker. That's great, great out of the gate, but you might not be able to deliver your product if you're kind of pumping things out really quick, really fast. So yeah, so I agree.
And I imagine, like, instead of, like, you mentioned empathy, which I appreciate, is, you have this team, rather than just outsourcing their jobs and getting rid of them, maybe come at it from a collaborative perspective. Like, okay, like, what do you guys think? Like, this is my trajectory. Like, obviously AI is here. Like, how do you want to collaborate on this? Like, can you find other ways like that you can be useful, and really kind of empowering people and asking for their feedback, because they may have ideas that you as a business owner aren't aware of. And so, like, it may be, collaborative, or it may be a redistribution of human capital to other areas that AI can't do yet. And so I think that it's, yeah, rather than just like kind of head down going all in on like automating everything, it's really kind of coming at it going, well, yeah, what are the humans doing and how can they contribute, and how can I, enhance my team, rather than just automate and outsource everything.
Yeah, no, I agreed. Companies, it's so weird to even make this statement, but a lot of companies for years, what they do, it's like, all right, we're just going to hire this person. We're going to hire that person. And I'm not saying stop hiring, but all right, stop hiring. Like take a step back for a minute. The job you're about to hire, if Jenny's job is going to be threatened, if she's able to run the AI tools, are you able to bring her over to maybe keep an eye on that, because AI is running it, and now she could potentially help you with this type of job? Like that, you have to really, you really have to start thinking about the human capital situation, because you don't want to be the company known as, we implemented a bunch of AI and then they started firing everybody. And then if the AI they realize that, let's just say we get in a couple of years and we realize, AI is great, but we're not losing as many people as we thought we did. You're going to get that reputation of you're the company that showed no empathy, showed nothing whatsoever, and you just start blowing out people because you thought AI was going to replace it. I do think AI is going to replace a lot of people, but I do think if, like you said, if you really, really evaluate your current human capital inventory and take a look at it, you might say, you know what, we probably don't need to hire this person, that person, and start pulling back on that a little bit. So yeah, and that all goes to the whole, really, really preparing for the AI world, which it's not coming. We currently live in it right now.
No, I think it's something that I think is really important. And actually, there was a story I read somewhere where, like, a larger company, laid off a whole bunch of people and replaced it with AI, but then ran into a whole bunch of technical issues where the AI didn't actually solve the entire problem they thought, and then they had to rehire a whole bunch of staff too. So it's like, I think it's like with any kind of technology or software, like, implement, but also like monitor it, make sure it's doing what it's meant to be doing before just firing everybody and letting them go. Like, really, and then maybe even keeping a couple people on to really monitor it and make sure it's running smoothly and functioning properly. So I think that's, yeah, really important too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's critical to take everybody you even have internally, like train them on AI right now, train them how to use AI, because at the bare minimum, if you want to come back to the empathy thing one last time, but even if you do have to let Joe go, Joe's going to walk into the workforce, and he's been trained on AI. He knows how to build GPTs and understands vibe coding, understands, open AI, and understands like the process that it's in. So it's going to help your business right now. And then secondly, it's also given that human element where if we do have to let this person go, at least we're putting them out in the workforce with those skills. If you're not training your workforce on AI right now, and you're not making that a major priority, you're doing your employees and yourself a major, major disservice right now. You really are.
No, I totally agree. And I think, like you mentioned, is a really good point, that it's not just going to help the company, it's going to help the individuals too. And I just think that's a really cool process or cool way to do things, because you might need more staff at some point, and then you could go back to those staff and be like, look, we need you back now. Like, whereas if you burn that relationship, you're kind of stuck. And so we sort of talked about a lot of the ways AI is automating things and chatbots and all of that. What are some processes internally that you aren't using AI for, that you're kind of still obviously very human heavy on?
I think human heavy that we're still heavy on. I mean, me personally here, but I am very reluctant to even give that up. Is we have a billing department and we have a billing manager. She's great. I haven't. We've run a little bit of AI through there. So still when it comes to the finances, the everyday finance decisions, do I think a GPT could cover it? Potentially. But I like the human element, the human aspect of having conversations with, my billing department and making sure that we're looking at everything. So I think from a CFO perspective, that top line, I think that might be one of the last things that's really touched with AI. I think they're going to run a bunch of stuff through AI. I think all of that's going to happen. But that's the one internal process that I think is going to be relatively safe, in my opinion. Yes, you can build GPTs, and yes, there's going to be platforms built that's going to run all your finances. But until you've run a business and until you understand that sometimes you got to massage numbers to make payroll, that's the kind of stuff that AI can give you, can give you, thoughts on. But there's that human rationale spot. So I think there's a lot of part where human rationale is involved in a lot of parts of business. And I think that right there is where AI is not there. And I think that's going to be the last of the Mohegans per se to really, be overtaken by AI. I'd be very surprised if people handed over their entire finance to AI. I think they're going to still want a human or two involved.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I mean, I have a couple of things I want to say, but I know the mathematical function is not super solid, even in ChatGPT. Like, I've done requests for it to help me with different calculations and things. And then I'm like, that's wrong. Like, that's dead wrong. And then you tell it and it's like, oh yeah, sorry. So I
Yeah.
think, like, from like an accuracy point of view, it's tricky. I've also tried uploading spreadsheets. It doesn't always like read it properly or analyze it properly. And so it seems like it struggles with mathematical stuff anyway. But also, like, I find, because I have a background in finance and accounting, as well, and a lot of, I think, hesitation is my data actually going to be private? Is it going to be encrypted and confidential? Because that's such like a big, if somebody has access to your financial data, like, that's a big kind of risk and a big thing that I think a lot of people are concerned of. And also, like you mentioned, it being one of the last things to get taken up, I think that's very true as well. And I think, accountants are traditionally like slower on the uptake with newer technology as well. So it's going to really depend on the market as well, and how much it picks up.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, even like we have a great accountant we work with. I don't think accountants go far beyond just doing your numbers. That they are probably some of the best business consultants you ever talk to in your life. And there's the rationale, there's the I've seen this and all. Now, will the conversation be different in 5 years? 100% it's going to be different with the conversation we're having right now. But yeah, I hear a lot, death of the accountant, death of this, death of that because of GPT. I'm like, not so fast. Until you're involved in your finances, like the people saying death to it are are you really doing the finances? Have you ever done finances in your life? Because the minute you have, you're like, wait a minute, we got to get human eyes on that, before we kind of just throw out the numbers. So yeah, I believe they're a little insulated in my opinion. So, but I do believe that there's going to be programs and software and so forth. How I do think it's going to merge is accountants and finance people are going to get really good at GPTs. They're going to get really good at AI. And I think you're going to consult with them to kind of work with stuff. And they're going to look at what you're running and say, yeah, that's accurate, so forth. So I think that maybe their job will morph over to that type of thing. They're just kind of putting quick eyes on things opposed to combing through the numbers. The funny thing you said about the math and the Excel sheets and things like that. Now that's for GPT-5 that's supposed to be coming out next month. Now it's supposed to be able to handle all that. We'll find out. But that's the thing that they're really going after. I know mathematics is something they're really, really trying to home in on. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I would have thought that maths would be easier than like a language model, but obviously like it's not the case. But I know I agree with what you said. And I think, even from like a tax perspective, like, there's stuff that accountants can do, that the knowledge base of tax law and corporate structures and all of that is so technical and high level and so contextual that I think it will be at least a while before a GPT or an AI tool can do it. I know there's already some out there that are already trying to do that. I imagine a lot of like bookkeeping and more of the data kind of entry tasks will become more automated, but I think you're right. Like it will be more high level kind of consulting. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Where's your cash flow? What's the cash in the bank? All of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny and I think it can do everything you just said, but here's where I think the problem we're going to run into. It's the trust. Exactly. Like you just said, cash flow, cash in the bank. If you thought about moving this, move that. I think it's going to be what's going to save accountants and save finance is going to be the trust, not because the technology can't do it. It's going to be, there's a trust factor. It comes right that to the medical question when it comes down to it. Let's say you have to have surgery. It's emergency. Are you comfortable with a robot operating on you? Or do you want, you know, Tom Jones, who's been a top flight heart surgeon for the last 25 years, is known as one of the best out there. I'm going with Tom, so now may that change? Yes. So I think this next generation, like I have my son who's 15, his generation that's kind of pushing in, they're going to develop this level of trust and be completely comfortable with it. But I think the generation we're in right now, all of us, millennials, all of us, all the, Gen X, boomers, all that, I think we're still at the stage of it's trust. But trust me, the generation right behind us, they're going to trust the robots way more than they're going to trust us. That's coming.
Right, because they're like growing up with it and they're used to it, kind of like I've grown up with the internet, just being a part of my life. They're going to grow up with AI and ChatGPT in that same way. And I like that you mentioned trust because I had a similar situation with a friend the other day where he lives overseas. And so he just wanted to chat through some international tax questions because I also live overseas. And I was like, yeah, no worries. And he's like, oh, I could, use AI or ChatGPT. And he's like, I already have, but he's like, I just want your opinion. Like, I want to chat through this. And so I think that's for a lot of people. And it's same thing. Like you might, ask ChatGPT for some medical advice or, I did this to my body, but what do you think? But you're still probably going to go and verify it and check it with a doctor, like you mentioned, because of the trust factor.
I think that's a sign off. I think your taxes are going to have to come back and start to be verified. I still think there's going to be, I think the government around the world are going to start instituting to sign off on this. It's got to be a medical seal from a doctor. To sign off on this, it's got to be a seal from an accountant and so forth and so forth. Like how the work and how you arrive there, that may be handled all by AI. But the final sign off in certain professions, accounting, medical, finance, I think is going to be the human. You got to put the human thumbprint on it. I do believe that that's going to be one of the things where I think for every country involved in AI, I think all of us collectively are going to say, yeah, we agree. To actually do the final sign off on higher level things, there has to be a trained professional that actually gives that final sign off.
No, for sure. And I think that's a great idea as well, just to have like, it's not saying all AI or all humans. It's kind of like, let's have the best of both. Like, let's use AI where we can, but then let's also use humans where is necessary. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's my there as well. We're going to get rid of this group. Why don't we just try to find a way to where humans can kind of really, if these things can help us get to 2 and 3 day work weeks, you can spend more time with your friends and family.
Mhm.
We can all make more money at some point, and things like that. And we feel better medically and we can start our own business. Like that's where we want to go about it. But I think there's a lot of doom and gloom in the media saying it's going to wipe out everything. Okay. Well, what if it doesn't? And what if humans and AI learn to work together, which I think they're going to? What happens if that all happens? Like, how does it look? A lot of people don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about job loss and all
What sells newspapers?
that stuff. It sells advertising,
Yeah.
which I do. But I think we have to continue to have the conversation of how can humans and AI work together and how can we advance all of our lives collectively working with it, opposed to it's going to destroy everything. So hopefully we change that conversation at some point.
Yeah, hopefully. I think it's just like either way you look at it, like there's going to be good and bad. Like, so I would much rather focus on all the good things that it's doing and be part of that. Yeah. So, well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much. Where can people find out more about you and what you do online?
Yeah, you could just go to comexus.com. We're right there on the screen. You can, take a look at what we do. And if you have a need for anything we do, or if you just have some questions, feel free to submit the contact form or call us. And if you want to talk to me, contact form or call the office directly and they'll get you in touch with me.
Perfect. Well, thanks again. And thank you everyone for listening.